One of the best things about this chapter, and genuinely just Kei Orana's character design in general, is the fact that within moments, we are able to see how the Aderoy twins are the best representation of Team Danger that could have possibly been the first way we get introduced to the insanity of these cleaners. Because not only are we able to see what makes Team Danger the solitary cleaner group, because within the first couple of pages of this chapter, you are able to see how Otto and El Pate, the older and younger brother of the Aderoy twins, are just incapable of working with anyone other than themselves. And it's not because they're rude or crazy or mean and bullies and just evil people. It is generally just because they lack just self-awareness, it seems, and no one is able to match their energy whatsoever. They are always putting out 110% of exertion of energy, and it's just kind of draining to be around because they don't even let Rudo really get words in. You wouldn't even be able to call what goes on here between Rudo and the twins a conversation, because they're mostly just talking to themselves and talking at Rudo rather than even listening to what Rudo says. And it's nice that we have the very convenient story beat that despite the twins being controlled by the choker, they were essentially aware of what was going on the entire time, so they don't need any new information. They don't need to be filled in. It's kind of like, I imagine like a get out situation almost, like they're kind of just trapped in their minds and they can't control their bodies, which is honestly terrifying. And I'm very, very glad that nothing like that is ever permanent, because they're able to rip the choker out. If Maimo, who thank you guys for correcting me earlier, if Maimo is able to learn a way to manipulate people in that way without using the choker that isn't temporary and becomes a permanent control, that is very scary to think about. And that may just be the way that this story arc is moving into, because it's very clear, without a doubt, that Felix, one of Maimo's direct followers, even says as much. They are fighting a losing battle. The cleaners are too much right now. Engine, Rudo, the Aderoy twins, so much firepower to the point that the Aderoy twins' vital instruments are just outright destroying all of the other festival goers' big vital instruments. That was the big issue, was it was just gonna be one big kaiju battle against the cleaners. However, now that the Aderoy twins are just moving and fighting in a way that no one is able to keep up with on stage, it seems apparent that Maimo has lost here. There's no way that they will be able to continue this nonsense rule that he thinks he has. And when Felix brings this up and says, hey, you know what, maybe we should kind of just get out of here. We don't want to give up what we've gone so far to achieve. Let's run away and come back to fight another day. However, Maimo says, Felix, you're wrong. As a ruler, as a dictator, I am always going to have people that try to go against my rule, which honestly isn't a lie by any means necessary. As someone who we very clearly see wants to rule by force and just wants to be, a power-hungry dictator, just because he is going to have plenty of people that go against who he is and don't see him as this big, idol and larger than life like Felix and his other followers do. So he says this is just honestly practice for the big thing, because I'm imagining Maimo wants to extend this rule far past the doll festival, and he wants to control the world. With an ego like that, that's clearly what the next step is going to be, which is not only why the cleaners need to stop him now, but also why hopefully this man does not get a hold of what he has begun to latch onto, which is Amo's power. We know that with Amo's ability to control people, she was easily able to counter Maimo's choker control ability with just completely getting people to take off their chokers and also fight against the people that weren't falling under the control. And Amo's control, as we've seen in previous stories, is much harder to break and much more, as I said earlier and hinted at, permanent, because Maimo understands that the choker maker is not, a great asset. especially now that the choker maker is onto Maimo and is aware that Maimo is going to use the chokers for evil doing, it's obviously not going to be a rule that lasts forever. So Maimo is more than happy to see the flaws in his rule and says, you know what? The best way to learn and the best way to grow is to experience counters in real time, as opposed to practicing, which you can always kind of manipulate the environment in practice. The best way to rule and counter any counters to that rule is to fight actual counters. And on top of that, again, if you see this as an opportunity to grow, which Maimo definitely does now that he's looking at Maimo, this may be exactly what Maimo needs in order to counter future rules and make sure no other rule of his gets countered. This video is sponsored by GamerSupps, the ultimate energy and focus formula. GamerSupps is an awesome drink made up of a bunch of vitamins like vitamin C, vitamin D3, B6, B12, and vitamin H, all super good for you and your health. So it's not one of those awful sugar-filled concoctions that's gonna make you crash after drinking it. If you're still skeptical about it, go check out the link and use my code anyway. They are more than willing to send you some free samples and give you a chance to try their product for free. Use my code NOOP now for 10% off, and thank you GamerSupps for sponsoring the channel. With Maimo really not worried at all and mostly just excited to continue the battle, it makes me worried to see what he has planned for the future. Because one thing that I can't help but get out of my mind is we have this raider here. And Fu, as much as I've come to appreciate his presence and as much as I think he can be an asset to the cleaners, his one fatal flaw as a character may be what completely ruins everything for us, which is the fact that he can't make decisions on his own and prefers to take orders. Even he admits that Amo gives him orders and he likes listening to Amo. So who here in this entire arena, in this entire battle, is probably best suited to give Fu orders? Probably the dude who's trying to become a dictator right now. And it really wouldn't surprise me, especially with all of the knowledge that Maimo seems to have on all of these characters. Like, he knew Rio's backstory, he even hinted at knowing Enjin's backstory. It wouldn't surprise me if Maimo was able to psychologically manipulate, which really isn't that hard, honestly, if he was able to psychologically manipulate Fu into turning against us. So not only is it possible that Maimo will get that new permanent way to control people, with Amo, he may get that increase in attack power that his followers and his army, quote unquote, needs with Fu right there. And I think it's not a coincidence that Fu also appears on that panel. But I digress about that because mostly this is all just speculation for the next chapter. Because again, I don't think this battle is coming to a close anytime soon, just based off the fact that everything momentum wise seems to be pushing Maimo into a loss. And as is said here, Maimo clearly watches Blue Lock and he is ready to take on that overwhelming force because he knows that's the best way to adapt. And he even specifically says to his follower Felix, who's currently using the big paper barrier and keeping them safe from getting attacked right now, that, hey, you know what? Not only is it time for me to grow, it's time for you to grow, because it's finally time to test how ironclad, how perfect your barrier is. Because as I kind of hinted at last chapter review, and it was very obvious, Rio has been eyeing up that paper barrier. With her giant scissors, there is no one else that should be made perfectly to cut through a freaking paper barrier. So without a doubt, this is also going to be a test for this character Felix as well, because she has been doing nothing but analyzing this barrier. And I'm fully convinced she's going to be able to amass the strength to destroy it. Is Felix going to be able to match Maimo's energy? Is Felix worthy of being in Maimo's guard? Because if Maimo isn't worried and Maimo thinks he can grow, then Felix, if he's to be Maimo's shield, must be able to do the same. And you know what? he seems confident enough that he'll be able to smash her, fangs and all. And he goes, does this girl think she's some kind of predator? And I just don't know if Felix knows what he's messing with, because honestly, Rio is a character that I have vowed to never fuck with personally. The moment I saw her go up against that raider and pull out a gun and just pop her, that was one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my entire life. And you know what? Someone like that, I fully believe, yeah, she is a predator and she's gonna probably eat this fucking man for lunch. Again, I know rock, paper, scissors, and there is no way, shape, or form that this man is convincing me paper is beating scissors unless he somehow transforms his vital instrument into something other than it's not. But until next chapter, we're just gonna have to wait and see what goes on. This was, only a 12-page chapter. It was relatively short, but I think that's mostly because the Aderoy twins got a lot of love in their omnidirectional cross skadoosh. And I don't know if Keirana has always been a fan of Kung Fu Panda or if this is a new thing that she has just recently got into, but I'm not mad at all about it. Skadoosh Kung Fu Panda is one of my favorite series, and whether that is a reference to it or something she came up with on her own, who knows. But while the Mimo arc so far hasn't been my favorite arc in the story, I am more than interested to see where it goes, and I'm also excited to see what you guys think about it too. So let me know what you guys think about Mimo in the comments and how you think this battle has been going. And most importantly, if you've been enjoying these Gachiakuta reviews, please hit that like button, because it not only helps the channel a lot, it also helps these reviews get to other fans of Gachiakuta, so that way we can continue to grow the Gachiakuta community, because with that anime coming out, the more people that read this masterpiece, the absolute better. So y'all, again, please hit that like button if you haven't already, and subscribe so you don't miss any future Gachiakuta reviews or Gachiakuta content that will be coming out, because I promise you, we've got plenty of character analyses and other things on the way. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.